The iPad mini may not be as affordable as some of the ultra cheap tablets out there, and it may not be as full-fledged and powerful as the 4th generation iPad. But if you want the most portable iPad that's compatible with a full gamut of apps, well, this one's pretty hard to resist, and it's got a form that's pretty easy to take with you. I'm Scott Stein, and this is the very cute and pretty addictive iPad mini. When the iPad mini was announced, the whole idea was to take the iPad experience and make it smaller, make it something more like a Kindle, make it something that competes with the 7-inch tablet market. And lo and behold, this is a really small device. And it kind of takes holding one to know how small it is and how light it is. 0.68 pounds, and it's about over half the weight of the 3rd generation and 4th generation iPad. And it feels in the hand a lot like a book or a Kindle, even more so than other 7-inch tablets out there. Now you notice the design is different, and it's really taking a page more from the iPod Touch. It's a curved, anodized aluminum shell that goes all the way around the sides and is flat on the back and curved on the edges, and the taper over here as sort of an aluminum bezel is a lot like the iPhone 5s. The iPad mini comes, like the larger iPad, in white or black, although in the black model, this is all slate-colored aluminum. And there are a whole bunch of smart covers. Now, they're different than the others. These are all fabric material. There's no aluminum connector whatsoever. And they're a little more discreet in the sense that you can fold them over with one fewer panels, tuck them in, but they work just as well for putting them up as a stand or folding it down into virtual keyboard mode. In fact, this thing in stand mode is actually a fantastic little picture frame. It's a lot cuter than the larger iPad. There's a 5-megapixel iSight camera on the back. There's an HD FaceTime camera on the front that's similar to the 5th generation iPod Touch and similar to what's on the new 4th gen iPad. There's no flash on the back, but you can shoot 1080p video and you can take FaceTime calls in HD. And you can run all the features in iOS 6 that you'd expect, including Siri, and the new apps, whether you like it or not, is built in, and all the other features in iOS 6 that we know about are built in. Now, Apple has internals in this that are very similar to other products that are out there. This is an A5 processor, which puts it relatively in the same territory as the iPad 2 and the 5th generation iPod Touch. So what makes this different? It's kind of a tweener device with a 7.9-inch screen. And who would be interested in this? Well, I'd say anyone who's doing a lot of reading and likes the idea of a super portable iPad. Now with the 4th generation iPad that came out at the same time, all of a sudden, this is the next generation of iPads, much faster than anyone had been expecting, myself included. You have a much faster processor at that top end level at an A6X, and this is an A5. So you have a performance gap, and you also have a Retina display on that end, and you also have a price difference. The 4th generation iPad starts at $499 for 16 gigabytes. This is $330 for starting with 16 gigabytes. And the first thing that comes to mind when I look at this is probably kids, because of the fact that you can take this around with you, sort of like the iPod Touch for a lot of people, but it's something that's much more toteable, much more easily holdable in small hands, and can go on trips even easier. And there's also LTE that's available. You can pay $130 more for that configuration. And LTE in the new iPad mini and the 4th gen iPad has been improved because now it works internationally much better. That might be very appealing to people who want to use this as their all-in-one device. Now, Apple's making claims that, anything that you'd use an iPad for, you can use this for. And the first thing that will come to many people's minds is, how are you going to type on a screen that small? And I found that it actually works pretty well. It's not going to be like a laptop or even like an iPad with that virtual screen. But the difference with this is not only can you type on it in landscape mode, but you can really hold it in your hands and type on it in portrait mode and really not feel much of a problem there. And games and apps that I've downloaded ranging from GarageBand to iMovie to virtual board game apps like Ticket to Ride or Carcassonne, many of them having little icons, all seem really usable on this screen. So that's a big win. And the other big factor in this is magazines. Digital publications, a lot of times on 7-inch tablets, get shrunken down. And here in a 4:3 aspect ratio, you look at issues of magazines out there, like maybe the New Yorker, Wired, or New York Times, and they feel readable in that format. Now, if you used Retina display, and you're an iOS user, you probably are living in Retina land all the time. There is a difference here. This is 1024 by 768, and even though it looks better and crisper than on the iPad 2, which had the same pixel resolution, it is not Retina land, and you can notice that. It may seem a little fuzzier if you've used anything like any of the current iPhones, the 5th generation iPod Touch, or the 3rd gen iPad, or even the 4th gen iPad, you'll notice a difference in crispness. But if you haven't used those devices, if you're coming to an iPad for the first time, text is readable. You can read things even down to small emails perfectly well, and that's not a surprise because you could read emails on an iPad too perfectly well, and really you're dealing with that in a slightly shrunken form here. Now, which iPad do you pick? That's really up to you. I think it's really hard to turn away a form that's this small, but on the other hand, the 4th gen iPad is really an improvement on what had already been there in the 3rd generation and really takes the speed up to a different level, and I think fixes some of that element in terms of compatibility with graphics that had been there before, although it may be very frustrating for people that the 4th gen iPad is out there. This might be a great second iPad for people. This may be an iPad for people who couldn't afford the other one, and for people who do really pick it for reading and pick it for media consumption. But there are a lot of other devices like this out there, certainly. You've got the Amazon Kindle Fire, you've got the Kindle Fire HD, you've got the Nook Plus, you've got the Google Nexus 7, and a lot of these have prices that are really low as $199, and this at $330 is a premium. But on the other hand, the screen on this is a lot wider, and the compatibility with the existing number of apps on the App Store, which is really sizable, is a difference maker. When will you see a Retina display on this? Who knows? But right now, it's a fantastic form factor and an interesting addition to the library. Maybe not essential to a lot of people, but when you pick it up, it's going to be hard to put back down. I'm Scott Stein, and that's a look at the new iPad mini, available November 2nd.